Stewardship is about our commitment to invest the gifts of God for the purposes of God. It is a privilege and a responsibility God's people have shared since the moment God formed the first human from the dust of the ground and breathed in the breath of life. We steward this gift of life by committing to take hold of everything God desires for us. We value our lives and the lives of others because our existence displays God's glory and faithfulness. It is a life of abundance and freedom and joy in which we partner with God in restoring all of creation. What is our relationship to the land? It is a relationship we need to consider deeply. God formed the first human from the dust of the earth. And then God instructed the human to care for the earth, to cultivate it, to work it, and till it as an act of worship to the Creator. A profound connection exists between our own well-being and the well-being of the earth we live in. God invites us to partner in the work of caring for all of creation. God entrusted the world in our care. There are some who believe that creation care is a distraction from our gospel mission, but the way God draws close to His creation, as described in Genesis, we see God pouring love and devotion into His work. God gets His hands dirty as the divine gardener, planting trees, working the soil, fashioning creatures with such exquisite detail and diversity. If this is God's attitude toward creation, shouldn't ours be as well? We as God's people are called to steward the earth, but all around us there is evidence that we have been unfaithful to this calling. We hoard, pollute, and exploit the resources of the earth. Our consumerism and greed lead to the degradation of the very things created to display God's glory. How do we relate to the land in a way that is honoring to God and respectful to His creation? We are also to steward well the resources in our possession. What gifts has the Lord placed in our hands that we can use for God's kingdom? Your home, for example. Have you offered your home for the Lord's use? Do you love others by being radically hospitable? How often do you invite people into your homes to share a meal at your table? I have had people tell me that sometimes months will go by, sometimes years, without a guest ever entering their home. What a lost opportunity. Home is where the heart is. What better place to love on others than in the home? My prayer is that our homes would be sacred places where people are healed, refreshed, and restored in God's Spirit. That every room would be filled with the prayers of God's people. A home where others can feel a sense of belonging in the presence of God. And then there are our relationships. The relationships we have are also gifts from the Lord. It is tempting to exploit relationships for our own use and benefit. And we marry for our own fulfillment. We make friends for our own happiness. And sometimes we end relationships when they are no longer any use to us. We walk out when marriage becomes too difficult, and we turn our backs on friendships that cause us discomfort. But what if we started viewing our relationships as something to be stewarded for kingdom purposes? How can the relationship you have with the waitress at your local restaurant, or your neighbor down the street, or the mom of your kid's soccer buddy, how can these be stewarded in ways that honor the Lord? And of course, there is the matter of our finances, which I left for last for a couple of reasons. First, we tend to limit our conversations about stewardship to money. Perhaps this is an indication of the position money has in our culture, but stewardship is not only about money. Second, our finances can be the most difficult to steward well. So often money can replace God as our source of security. We are tempted to invest more time in the accumulation of wealth over anything else. Jesus speaks more about money in the New Testament than any other subject, besides perhaps the kingdom of God. There's probably a very good reason for this. My husband, Albert, and I decided early on in our marriage that we would be a family that tithes 10% to the Lord first before anything else. We were not legalistic about it. We decided we would trust the Lord to provide for our needs, and He always has. As God increased our resources, we made a commitment not to change our spending habits. Rather, we decided to use the excess for God's purposes. We've been able to fund grants for missional innovation for local churches, as well as offer financial support for clergy seeking mental and emotional health services. Buying things for pleasure can bring temporary satisfaction, but investing in things for God's kingdom has an impact that is eternal. God has put a wealth of resources in our hands. Consider the many gifts God has bestowed on you: the gift of life, the gift of God's creation, the gift of relationships, and the gift of your resources and possessions. Consider the ways God is inviting you to partner in kingdom work. What changes can you make so that you can steward these gifts well, in ways that will work towards the restoration of all things and bring glory and honor to God's name?